As you can probably notice, I've got about 8 minutes or so to do this in before I have to go back in and, well, finish off my night. But I thought I'd quickly kind of talk about something real quickly. It's a question everybody asks when it comes to certain mediums. Now, you might have noticed on one of my previous videos, which was filmed with my Kindle, that I talked about, the fact, that there is a reason. There is a reason for always having that fourth or third will added to a romantic equation. Basically, it's to cause interest, intrigue, if you will, into what you are seeing, into what you want to see happen eventually. Now, the one question, though, anybody has when things like that happen, or any other kind of thing happens, is why? Why do studios in animation, why do studios of animated shows or live action shows, or mostly animated shows, put all these different scenarios or situations or what the blanks in? I'll give you an example. One of the things I've talked about, and I'm sure a lot of people know I harp on a lot, is the melting gag or the lustful melt situation, or just the melting interpretations. Everybody wants to know why in the world would studios put these into their shows? Where did it begin? Why do they do this? Well, as I've said before in a multi-part video, the reason for this, especially when it comes to the lustful melt portion of the melting tool, or the melting gag, or whatever you want to call it, it's mostly cause of expression. You see, when they use the melting tool, or the melting situation, or solution, but in a scene where the lustful melt portion of it comes into play, it's basically to visually show in animation form how the character is feeling. Most of the time it's the female that gets this according to TV tropes, but still it's a visual way of showing how the female feels towards another. Now, sometimes people would say, well, the shows that they do it on, it's impossible. Not precisely. Not really. You see, in animation, anything's possible. Period. And that's been proven. And you can find different ways of interpreting this. You can find different ways of doing it. For example, in Groove High, a show out of the UK and has made sporadic appearances here in the US, there is a scene, like I've mentioned before in the very few episodes, where the animated version of the Zoe character melts into a puddle of water. Basically, she goes into a lustful melt gag or situation, but instead of turning into sort of a tannish colored puddle, she goes all blue and watery and melts into a puddle of water. But yet, we take a look at another show I got introduced to recently because of that, called Sidekick. And in the mini episode, News at 11 a.m., in the mini episode, you have another main protagonist character, Ivana, basically do a lustful milk gag. And she does a milk gag where she's, let's just put it this way, 90% melted down, except for her head and her legs sticking out. But she does a lustful milk gag, and according to TV tropes, melts like wax. Now, again, it's all about visually showing how the character feels. So if the character is feeling like the individual that's talking to her has caused it to literally just melt into a puddle of goo, then, so be it. Then, of course, there are other situations as well. Sometimes a live action movie or an animated show or whatever, people will ask the question as to why does a movie, an animated show, whatever, add in a bubble bath scene? Why do they add this scene in? And some of the time they have the female character, maybe sometimes the male character, but mostly the female character, not just relax and lavish in a big old bubble bath, if you will, but sometimes submerge under, or literally as they're laying down the bubbles, just disappear in the bubbles. Why? Why do they do that? And it's basically for attention. To me, it's about, the reason they do it is for the attention span. It's like, we need something, it's like, they know if a movie is going to be good or not, or it's going to kind of be wavery. They know, what can we do to really get people's attention with this movie? Oh, I know, let's put in a bubble bath scene with an attractive woman, and let's make the bubble bath overflowing a little bit. There you go. Then, of course, there are other solutions, other questions as well. Like, why at times does the main character seem like they're near death at times with situations? Like, let's say there's a sort of a quicksand kind of situation for a main character, mostly at times male or female. And when that main character basically has to close their eyes and duck their head down because they're sinking further past their head, why does it make it look like they're going to die when in fact down the line they're still okay? We find out they're still okay. Why do they do that? It's called just like I've mentioned in the previous video about the additions of the romantic triangles and four ways. It's basically about intrigue and interest. It's to grab your attention. That's what it does. It's intrigue instead of it grabs your attention. It's all that. Some people always ask the question, why do you take a good guy character, and even for a few episodes, if not a whole season, turn them bad with the obvious solution that they're going to go good again? Intrigue and interest. And basically it makes you want to see that character become good again. Heck, in the views of the Star Trek situation, a lot of people have said with the Star Trek series, it's always been a question at times of why. Like, why they did this, why they did that. Like with that whole situation with Deep Space Nine, I believe. Or was it Voyager? I can't remember. It was one of them. I think it was Voyager. Yeah, it was Voyager. It's like, why in the world would they do something like that where they would have two of the main characters, one of them being the captain most of all. Why would you have them mutate in the end into evolve or de-evolve or whatever you call it into salamander creatures and give birth, and then have the captain in her salamander form give birth to baby salamander creatures, and then indicate after they're restored, oh, by the way, I may have been the one that did it. See, these are questions, these are always situations where fans are always going to ask the question, why? Why they do this, why they do that. It doesn't make any sense to them. So, that's always something that's going to be intriguing for a lot of fans, for anybody that's a fan of movies, live action series and movies, animated movies or series, or even comics. And that question being, why? Like with Revolutionary Girl Utena, the movie, the question in that is, why in the world would you turn Utena into a car for your climax? It doesn't make sense. So, it doesn't make sense to them. But some fans have interpreted it as to why it happened. But that's basically why some fans, when it comes to certain mediums or medias, always ask the question as to why did they do it.